Good morning. We are in Chosribis Sivan Kosamich Sevav. Also, Lahaktim Haribis. Now we're getting to the dinim of all things people ask about the Ribis Mukdemis, Ribis Mucheres. Also, Lahaktim, we're getting into Ribis Droim. Also, Lahaktim Haribis or La'achar Oisoi. It's also to be Makdim Ribis or to give it later. Ketzad, what does that mean? Also, he knows someone, he wants to go ahead and he wants to borrow money from I am a Shagar Doro, and he sends him a nice, nice shalchmanos or a nice bouquet of flowers, whatever, fancy, whatever. Upirish bishvil sheyoveu, and the Ramah says that he has to actually speak out that he's doing it for the loan. So the thing is that first of all, Ribis Mukdemis Mucheres is not. There's a few levels of Ribis. There's Ribis Ksutza. There is Ribis Durabanan, things like that. And then there are things which are Nechshav Avak Ribis, which are just Tzeres Ba'alma. The Chachamim says not to do. But doesn't have any nafkaminas when it comes to bimotzi, to bimotzi mamon and things, and it's just extra things. So, ribis mukdemis mucheres is a din of avak ribis. So, I'm saying that you have to speak out clearly. That it's clear that you're giving it for the halva. A person thinks, okay, a few months I want to borrow some of the nice shalchmanos. Okay, there's no problem with that. Oshehu matana maruba the mistama habiki ilu pirishlo. Or if you send him something like super fancy, that it's clear that the reason you're doing this is to butter him up, so to speak, that you can go ahead and ask for a loan. Doesn't mean that people know. Like, I gets it. And you say, wow, this huge fancy shalach manos from out of the blue, and the guy shows up, you got my shalach manos. Yeah, yeah. I think that because shalach manos is something which the people would send out of the blue. I do this nowadays. Someone sends a gift out of the blue. It would be odd, I think it's pretty. It could be. It's even obvious. Patana Aruba means that it's obvious that he's sending it, not because of he likes him or he knows him or anything like that. And the Shach says that Patana Aruba means even if he normally sends him matanos, but suddenly he sent him like something super fancy, so then something super big, so then that's the problem. That would be also as well. Bishvil sheyavuhu zu hiribis mukdemis, right? So he should lend him money. That's ribis mukdemis. Love him, he borrowed money from him. And then he paid him back. And afterwards he sends him a gift for lending him money. Batelos etzlo, or like he said, like he lent him money. The fact you let me have it for a certain amount of time. You loan it for a year, whatever it is. Zuribis mucheres. Im avar also can erase avak ribis. And if they talk, they did it. That is nachshav avak ribis. Shaila, there's a shaila about interesting shaila about what if you give it b'toras matana. Miruz mucheres, you say to the guy, listen, thanks so much. Here's a nice I brought you a bouquet of flowers as a matana. Whatever. So Nachman Ephraim says if he's mafarish, it's not for ribis. It's just because he likes him, or because or it could be that even if he says, it's for a karas hatov, right? What if he says, I want to give you a karas hatov, you're chayav to give a karas hatov, are you allowed to do that? So it is mashma. The Machan Ephraim does bring different rayas that it would be motor, but there are people who are cholok on the Machan Ephraim and they say there's no nafkamina. So therefore the place can say that if he just stand for Hakara Satov, that he says if he just says a simple we'll get into Ribbis Dvarim. We'll get into Ribbis Dvarim in a minute. But if he gives him a gift, we'll get into Ribbis Dvarim. It's much more complicated. And Pashas is it's going to be ulcer. But if it's afterwards they become close, and over the time of the halva they became close friends, and because of that he gives him a gift, that's going to be okay. Anything which is out of the norm is a problem. Something just because he lent you money doesn't mean forever and ever you can't give him a gift. If it's obviously attached to the loan, then it's a problem. Zion. Any malva who lends money has to be very careful not to get hana from the loive shalomi daitai. Calls one shema oisav biyado. It can't be because he can't I lent the money. He just I'm gonna go take some fruit from his tree. I don't know, something like that. I get hana from him, whatever it is, because even if it's lomi daitai, afilu b'davar shahaya oisaloi. Even if it's something, he usually goes and lets him take fruit from his tree, or that could be even more of a problem, or something like that. Lets him,
How about carpooling? Carpooling, getting a ride.
Yeah, getting a lift, right? Giving him a lift would be, in economic could be a problem. Af imlo right? However, if the lova knows, that's the thing. Tramping, getting a lift is midaita. The mutter, also if it's something that he would usually give him a lift, then and so the lova stops. Here you want a lift. The Bible doesn't have to refuse. If it's something he normally would do for him anyway, that's okay. But if it's something which something let's say, he walks through his property, right? He says, he cuts through his property. It's also mutter. I don't know, trespassing. I don't know, whatever. But he cuts through his property to get to somewhere else. So that would be that, and Loba doesn't know about it. That would be a problem. As long as also not something shofar hestia, even if he knows about it, if it's something, he's a gabbai, right? Gabbai in the shul, and he gives him shlishi, shishi, depending on what shul you're in or whatever. So then, that would be even if it's something which could be he would normally do, it's taka shaila. Could go, or the case of the Mishnah, is the case of the Shulchan Aruch, is you don't loader b'chatzero, l'vishtamish ba'avadav. Or L'Hoder B'Chatzero is, he lets him stay for Shabbos in his house, right? That for us, people know about it, and other people know about it. That would be a problem if he lends him money to let him stay in his house for Shabbos. It might be a shiloh to be discussed. The Dor B'Chatzero is a case of if it's done. The beginning of the loan is Rivas Ksutza. Renting, if you let him stay rent free in his property, you let me money, I'm lending you money, and now you have to give me free stay without rent, is considered Rivas Ksutza. So over here it's not, but Al Kopanim it's big. Al Kopanim do it for Hestia is definitely a big shiloh. Well, it's also. Whatever. Ches, Sif Ches. I feel the bottom of the base, also the havos berivis. Even to your kids, even ktanim, or even the base, also the havos berivis. That'll be she'enu makbid aleim. Even if he doesn't, he's not makbid if they pay it back or not. What I know still him b'matana. right? Or even to, let's say, either to lahavos, to lend from them or to borrow, either one is a problem, even if it's just a matana. Come on, it's just or he wants to teach him the value of money, and I don't know, not to get into debt, and he'll see what happens if you go into debt. All these things, it's a problem because it also the misrach. He's gonna come to see that oh yeah, wow, you really talk can make money from ribis, and he might come to get rugil, even if you want, even if it's he thinks he's teaching a lesson and he's saying whatever it is, but upon him, it's also midin because it's, we'll see later on, someone who's just like something without machbid on it. It's could be there's we'll see later. It's not necessarily ribis, but for bnei beisa there's an extra chumrah because you don't want to give them bad chinuch. Right. The siftes lo yasim malacha lechaveroi amanash chaver yasi imo achakach malacha shehi yoser kaveda. Now, there's a din. There's a din in the Mishnah of nechesh li v'nachesh lo, meaning you say, listen, you do, I'll give you a lift today and you give me a lift tomorrow. All right, you'll drive today and I'll drive you tomorrow. So the Mishnah says there's no problem. There's no problem ribis in that case. That either it's because the question is doing avoda in exchange for avoda. How do you understand that? Is it that it's actual an actual halva, like you're lending him your work ki'ilu, and he's giving back his work? Is work considered like an object or like money, or the pshat is it's like skiras polim? Is that you're paying him? You say, okay, listen, you drive me today, and I'm going to pay you by driving you tomorrow. So if it's just if it's just paying, so then that's not really, then it's mutter, because that's not considered that you're paying him with shavakesef. You're paying him with your own work. So that's not that wouldn't be ribis. However, so over here the Mishnah says. Mishnah's matrit l'maisa. It says it's mutter. However, in a case where the second malacha you're doing is much harder, it's not okay. You give me a lift, I'll give you a lift. You give me a lift, and I'm gonna go paint your house. Right? It's not. Even it's possibly more. A harder job than it is also. A few lasas ima oisa malacha atzma also. Even to do the same malacha, it's also imhu bezman sheyoisa kaveda. If it's at a time when it's going to be harder. Like he's weeding imo begorid in the later season. When it's wet and when it's damp out, it's much harder to do the work. Even it's the same thing.
Much easier. Much easier to weed when it's right, when it's wet.
Okay, so and I have to know the item. So then, whatever. It's one's an easier time, one's a harder time. I assume that was it. Maybe it's raining. I don't know. I have to look at the first Mishnah to get the exact, specific case there. But Akopanim, it's a harder thing. Nagid, they say it could be they say you say, okay, I'll give you a lift today. That lift is going to be, in the middle of the day or 12 o'clock at night, something like that. You give me a lift tomorrow in rush hour. Forgetting the gas, but it's it's going to be a much harder drive. It's going to be much longer, something like that. It will be a problem. It could be, I can't say, it would be a problem. Something like that would be a problem. I'm not getting into whether you're lending gas or not, whether by you giving him a lift on a shorter or longer ride, like you give him a lift for 10 minutes, and and then he gives you a lift for an hour. First of all, is it a halva on the gas? I'm not sure. I don't think so, because then again, gets into saw, and that's something people aren't makbid on exactly on the gas. Sometimes they are, but it's usually you're giving someone a lift. You're not makbid. We'll get into saw later. Things you're not people aren't so makbid on, whether it's a little bit more gas. Well, if it's a big trip, that's something else. Let's say he gives you a trip to the machola, a trip to the store, or across town, and then you take him on they'll take you on a trip, 2 day trip up north, whatever 2 day trip. That would be that would be a problem. If that's not that if that's part of the Tanai, part of the I'll do this for you, if you do this for me. Stam, if he later on, if he get he gives him a lift, and then later on he says, here, because you gave me a lift, yeah, I'll give you whatever. That's not a loan, really. It's just like, okay, I'm giving you a favor and a favor, but that's not. It's not. They're not tied in together. Hagavim echad malva malas lechavero al zman ma. Someone lends money for a certain time. K'dei sheyachzor v'yilve pam acheres. He lends him money now, so on das that he's going to go ahead and lend the money later on. He lent me money for 30 days. I'll lend it also for 30 days. Some say that's also. Some say because halva is nechshav mamon. It's so then you're lending. It's kilo. Halva is money. So that would mamish be halva and halva.
Even though they're identical.
Even though they're identical, because it's and then others say v'lo dami la'oise ima malacha v'choyzos ima the gabi halva schar halva unoitel. He's taking schar for it's kilo. He's taking schar for giving him a loan. Is that the fact that he's going to go ahead and lend them money back? It's kilo. He's taking extra money for that. Some say it's only if he lends them more. So it depends. So it depends what you're looking or how you're looking at it. Some say it's also either way because it's kilo. You're renting. You're giving him. The halva is considered like has some sort of value to it, or the length of the halva, and you're giving back. You're giving the fact you're giving halva back is like you're giving. You're giving. You're giving him. It's kilo. You're paying him for giving you that halva. Some say no, it's not like that. It's only if it's longer that you're giving something extra. Otherwise it doesn't make a difference. Some there's a bit different pshatim. Some say there's more. The longer thing is more chance to invest it more, and there's more possible money. There's different reasons over here. When it comes to the question of malacha, there's an interesting question about I'm going to ask about why isn't it sabasah? We're going to sabasah the answer. We'll see if I give you something. It's talking about a case where there's no set price per se. If I lend you a saw of wheat, and the price fluctuates, and you give me a saw, you give me a saw back. You can't do that because we're choshesh that maybe when the time he gives the saw of wheat back, the price is going to be higher. He's giving him more. So the question is, well, maybe in the malacha, maybe this work in the market is going to be, when he does it for you, it's going to be worth more. Right? Maybe the taxi prices will go up. He wants to, he's going to give you a lift, and I'm going to give you a lift back, and maybe it's kilos a taxi. Or let's say simple, he paints his house, and he paints his house. So in the meantime, the painting goes up in price. So the heter is a heter by Salvasal called Yeshlo, that if he has in his house already, then it's mutter to go ahead and to lend him a saw of wheat. That we'll get into the reasons why, but that's okay. So too over here, so the Ravid says whatever that is Dachshav Yeshlo, because he can just go do the work. It's not something he can't. He has the ability to go ahead and do the work, or even to hire someone is also Yeshlo. So then that's called Yeshlo, and therefore it's not, it's not a problem. Yod also the lamed is a malve. O is beno mikro gemara kozman. Just agav the gra is machmir. The gra is machmir like the first day in the Ramah, so a person should be careful should be careful that if someone lends you money, again, you shouldn't tie it together. If it's tied, the problem is when you tie it together. It's something which is not tied together, so it could be, it's the chor, it's okay. But but if he says, the Gemara says, but if he says, you know what, you lent me money, and because you lent me money here, he comes in for a loan, I'm gonna lend you money also when you need it. He says that's like ribbis dvarim. Something which should be also a vat ribbis will be any will gara wouldn't be any worse than ribbis dvarim. So the person should be careful about that. Yod. Also, the lamed as b'malva or as b'no mikra or gemara, kozvan shema'osav biyado. As long as he has money, as long as he lent him the money is in his hands. He no higher rugel was If he, he has a chavrusa shaf with someone, and one guy lends the other one money, he can continue doing the chavrusa shaf. But if he lends him money and then afterwards he starts tutoring his son, things like that, it's a problem because he's giving him extra. Because listen, it's person, because it says that a father is hired to teach his son. So therefore, if he's doing it if he's doing it for free, tell me he's doing it for free. If he's doing it for free, then he's saving him money. He says, "Listen, you lent me money." And he didn't say anything. He just tutors his son for free. If he, it's then it's kilu. He's paying him extra. If he charges money, he charges money. Agav, they learn out of here. They're grossing to mashma, and the gross says sent to over here. That here it's mashma straight from the mechaber. That it's that the mechaber paskins that it is mutter to go ahead and take money for teaching and for tutoring and things like that. It is mutter. The machlok is much later on, but here he's status of the mechaber is that it is mutter, and that's why there's talk even for Torah Shabal Peh, which is Gemara. So that's why there's that's why it is also. Okay, stop. Yeah. I'm going to